Alina didn't scream when Leonid said those words. She didn't throw anything, didn't argue, didn't even blink. She just stood there, still, silent, as if her mind needed a moment to understand what her ears had heard. The kitchen light hummed above them. The smell of burnt toast lingered in the air. It was such an ordinary moment, yet his sentence sliced her open so deeply that the world felt unreal. Even naked, nobody would want you. The words echoed long after he casually walked away, scrolling on his phone like nothing had happened. Alina's hands trembled. She backed into the hallway and closed the bathroom door behind her. The moment the lock clicked, her knees gave out. She slid down to the cold tiles, pressing a hand to her mouth to keep from sobbing. She told herself not to cry. But her body didn't listen. Her reflection in the mirror blurred through tears, a woman who looked older than her age, drained, wilted. The girl she once was, vibrant, laughing, full of life, felt like a stranger she could barely remember. She touched her cheek, tracing where the tears fell, and whispered to herself. Is that really what he sees? Is that what I've become? Her heart tightened painfully. She remembered the early years, when Leonid looked at her like she was the only light in his world. When he used to kiss her forehead and tell her she was beautiful even when she wore pajamas and messy hair. When did admiration turn into contempt? She closed her eyes and tried to pinpoint the moment everything changed, the moment he stopped seeing her as a woman and started seeing her as inconvenience. A shadow. A thing. The cruel sentence kept replaying in her mind. But beneath the hurt, something unfamiliar flickered. A tiny spark. Maybe anger. Maybe exhaustion. Maybe the last drop before something inside her finally snapped. As she forced herself to breathe, she realized she was gripping the edge of the sink so tightly her knuckles turned white. She felt a whisper inside herself, faint but unmistakable. You can't keep living like this. That whisper terrified her, but it also felt like the first true thought she'd had in years. She stood up slowly, wiped her tears, and looked at the mirror again. Her face was still red, her eyes still swollen, but there was a different expression now. Not broken, determined. She didn't know what she would do next. But she knew one thing. Leonid's words wouldn't be the final definition of her worth. Not anymore. Alina almost didn't go. She stood at the entrance of the fitness studio, gripping her bag strap so tightly her fingers ached. Laughter, music, and the rhythmic thud of shoes on mats floated from inside. Everyone seemed confident, energetic, alive, everything she didn't feel. She almost turned around, almost walked back to the familiar emptiness she called home. But her friend's voice echoed in her head, just try once. You need something for yourself. So she inhaled deeply and stepped inside. The studio was bright, full of mirrors reflecting bodies stretching, jumping, moving with purpose. Alina's oversized hoodie felt like armor, and she pulled it tighter, praying no one noticed her. Then she heard a warm voice. First time, she looked up to see a tall man with kind eyes and a smile that reached his cheeks. He had that blend of strength and gentleness that made people relax without even realizing it. Marek. Instructor. Trainer. A man who looked like he lived in the gym, yet somehow didn't make her feel small. Alina nodded awkwardly. Is it that obvious? A little, he laughed softly. But don't worry. Everyone starts somewhere. Come, I'll help set you up. He guided her to a mat, explaining the warm-up steps. His tone wasn't rushed or impatient, every word was calm, encouraging, steadying. He didn't look at her like she was a burden. He didn't judge her body. He didn't pity her. He simply saw her. That alone made her throat tighten. As the music started and the class began, Alina struggled. Her breathing was uneven, her legs shaky, her movements delayed by self-consciousness more than lack of skill. Every time she hesitated, Marek stepped near, not too close, just enough for her to feel supported. Good. Keep your back straight. That's it, you're doing great. Don't worry about speed. Just focus on your body. His voice was warm but firm, like a hand guiding her through heavy fog. Little by little, she felt her muscles awakening. Sweat formed on her forehead. Her cheeks flushed, not from embarrassment but from effort. She started to enjoy the burn, the awakening, the reminder that she existed beyond pain and insults. At one moment, Marek passed behind her to adjust her posture. His fingers brushed her elbow lightly. You move beautifully, he murmured. The words stunned her. She almost stumbled. Beautiful. Her. She glanced at him, searching for sarcasm, but found none. His expression was sincere, eyes kind, lips curved in a soft, genuine smile. Her heart fluttered with something she had almost forgotten existed, the warmth that comes when someone sees value in you without asking for anything in return. After the class ended, Alina sat on her mat, catching her breath. Sweat dripped down her temples, her muscles trembled, but for the first time in a long time, she felt alive. Marek walked over, handing her a small towel. "You did amazing for your first day," he said. "Come again tomorrow." Alina hesitated, feeling the old fears trying to pull her back. But then she remembered her reflection in the bathroom, the determination in her eyes. She nodded slowly. "Yes, I think I will." Marek smiled, that warm, unshakable smile, and she felt something shift inside her. Something awakening, something hopeful. Alina returned home that evening with sore muscles and a strange lightness in her chest, a feeling she'd nearly forgotten. Her hair was still damp from the shower at the gym, her cheeks still warm from the workout. She stepped into the apartment quietly, hoping to slip into her room without attracting Leonid's attention. But the glow on her face must have been impossible to hide. Leonid looked up from the couch, where he sat half reclined, beer in hand, the TV flashing bright colors across his expressionless face. "You're late," he muttered. Alina paused at the doorway. "I told you I was trying that class today." He snorted. "Waste of time. Those places just want your money." She swallowed the sting and walked toward the bedroom, but his voice followed her, colder and sharper. "And don't expect me to pick up extra chores because you're chasing some fantasy of self-improvement. Let's not pretend you're gonna turn into some model." The words hit her like small stones, not enough to wound deeply, but enough to bruise. She responded softly, "I didn't ask you to do anything, Leonid." "That's right," he said, lifting his drink, "because I won't." She closed her eyes, inhaled slowly. She wasn't going to give him the power to ruin what little peace she'd built tonight. Not anymore. In her room, she dropped her bag and sank onto the bed. Her phone buzzed. A message. "Marek, proud of you today. You pushed through even when it got hard." Her heart fluttered. Another message followed. "Hope you're feeling good. You earned it." Alina read the words twice, almost startled by how gentle they were. No sarcasm, no coldness, no hidden blade behind them. Just kindness. She typed a reply, fingers trembling slightly. "Alina, thank you, it's been a long time since I felt proud of myself." She stared at the sentence, wondering if it sounded too vulnerable, too honest. But before she could overthink it, Marek responded. "You should feel proud every day. You showed real strength." Her breath caught. Strength. Nobody had called her that in years. She glanced at the closed door, half expecting Leonid to burst in with another insult, another complaint, another jab to pull her back into the shadows. But the apartment was quiet except for the muffled TV and the clinking of his bottle. Her phone buzzed again. "Marek, get some rest. Tomorrow I'll help you stretch so you won't be sore." Alina smiled, a small, surprised smile that softened her whole face. Later, she walked out to get a glass of water. Leonid glanced at her, eyes narrowing as if sensing something different. Some shift he couldn't name. "You look flushed," he said suspiciously. "What were you really doing there?" She didn't flinch. She didn't shrink. Just answered calmly, "Training." His jaw tightened. He didn't like that answer. He didn't like the glow in her cheeks, the steadiness in her voice, the faint confidence returning to her posture. He didn't like anything he couldn't control. But Alina wasn't thinking about him anymore. Her mind replayed Marek's smile, the warmth in his eyes, the simple respect in his tone. Respect, a rare, almost foreign sensation in her life. Back in her room, she lay on her back staring at the ceiling. For the first time in so long, she felt a spark inside her, tiny, fragile, but unmistakably alive. What Leonid didn't know, what he couldn't know, was that his cruelty had awakened something he couldn't extinguish. A new strength, a new light, a new beginning. He felt her slipping away. But Alina, she felt herself coming back to life. Alina stood in front of the mirror before leaving for her next class, her fingers hovering uncertainly over the neckline of her top. It wasn't revealing, not even close, but it was fitted. It hugged her waist gently instead of swallowing her whole. The leggings she chose were high-waisted, supportive, flattering in a way she hadn't allowed herself to notice before. She wasn't dressing for anyone. She was dressing for the version of herself she was trying to rediscover. She dabbed a bit of tinted balm on her lips, brushed her hair into a soft ponytail, and for the first time in years, she liked the woman looking back at her. Not because she looked perfect, but because she looked like she was finally trying. When she entered the fitness studio, she expected to feel out of place, but the reaction was immediate and surprising. A few of the regular women glanced her way, eyebrows raised in quiet admiration. One smiled as if encouraging her, not judging. Even the receptionist did a subtle double take. Alina's cheeks warmed, and for a moment she worried the attention would swallow her whole. Then Marek walked out of the equipment room, towel tossed over his shoulder. He was mid-sentence, speaking to another trainer, but he stopped the second he saw her. Completely stopped. His mouth parted slightly, just a breath of surprise, quickly replaced by something softer, warmer, deeper. He walked toward her, step by steady step, as if drawn without thinking. Alina, his voice was quieter than usual, almost reverent. You look. She lifted a nervous brow. Different. He shook his head slowly, eyes not leaving hers. No. Alive. The word wrapped around her like warm sunlight. She swallowed, her heart beating in places she'd forgotten existed. He stepped aside to give her space, but his gaze lingered, not hungry, not invasive. Curious. Respectful. A little stunned. Ready to train? He asked, clearing his throat. Yes, she answered, surprised by how strong her voice sounded. During the warm-up, Alina felt the awareness of her own body in a new way. Her movements were smoother, her breaths more controlled. Every time her hips shifted or her arms extended, she sensed her strength beginning to return from wherever it had been buried. Marek noticed too. His guidance felt different today, gentler, more attentive, like he didn't want to break the fragile glow she carried. He corrected her posture once, placing a hand on the small of her back. His fingers barely touched her, but the warmth spread through her like a ripple. That's perfect, he murmured. Perfect. Her. The word echoed inside her like a melody she hadn't heard in years. She didn't pull away. Instead, she let herself feel the moment, the respect, the attention, the subtle electricity neither of them acknowledged out loud. When the class ended, she wiped sweat from her forehead and caught Marek watching her from across the studio. Not staring with lust, not analyzing her like a trainer evaluating a client. Watching her with something else, something that made her chest tighten in a new, unfamiliar way. He quickly turned away when a colleague called his name, but not before she caught the faint flush on his cheeks. As Alina walked out of the building, the evening air cool on her skin, she felt a new sensation rising in her stomach, something fluttering, nervous, alive. She didn't know if it was confidence, attraction, or the intoxicating sense of being seen. But she knew one thing for certain. Whatever she was becoming, she liked it. And for the first time in years. She couldn't wait to see what tomorrow would bring. The studio was buzzing with energy when Leonid arrived, uninvited, unexpected, and already irritated. He had called Alina twice, and when she didn't answer immediately, his imagination twisted itself into knots. He told himself he was just checking on her. But the truth was simpler. He felt something slipping away, and he wanted to grab it before it was gone. He pushed through the doors, the scent of rubber mats and citrus cleaner filling the air. He scanned the room with sharp, searching eyes. Then he saw her. Alina stood near the mirror wall, laughing, genuinely laughing, as Marek gently adjusted her stance. Her cheeks glowed with effort, her hair damp with sweat but somehow radiant. Her fitted top revealed the graceful line of her waist, her leggings contouring the strength returning to her legs. She looked nothing like the woman who used to tiptoe around him at home. She looked alive. She looked wanted. Leonid froze mid-step. His breath hitched. His face darkened. That wasn't the woman he had left at home, beaten down, silent, apologizing for breathing too loudly. This woman was brighter, lighter, desirable in a way he never expected, or perhaps never allowed himself to see. And standing beside her was another man. A man smiling at her like she was the sun. A man touching her waist with easy familiarity. Leonid's jaw clenched so hard a vein bulged in his neck. Marek didn't notice Leonid at first. He was too focused on Alina, lowering his hand to guide her hips just a little, murmuring. Perfect. Yes, just like that. You've got it. Alina's breath shook as she moved, the closeness making her heart flutter. She wasn't flirting, she didn't even know how to anymore, but she was responding to a gentleness she had missed for so long. Her eyes met Marek's for a brief second, and something warm passed between them. Something visible. Something unmistakable. That was the moment Leonid exploded. What the hell is going on here? The shout cracked like a whip across the room. Music didn't stop, but the atmosphere did. A few heads turned, a trainer paused mid-rep. Alina spun around, startled. Her hand instinctively pulled away from Marek, but Marek stepped to her side protectively, shoulders squaring. Leonid stormed forward, eyes blazing with a mixture of jealousy, disbelief, and fear that he was no longer the center of her world. "So this is what you're doing," he hissed, pointing at her outfit. "Dressing like this." For him. Alina blinked, breath caught in her throat. She wasn't used to him reacting like this. He never seemed to care before. He barely looked at her. But now that someone else did, he suddenly remembered she existed. Marek took a single step forward, calm but firm. "Sir, you're interrupting the class. If you need to speak with Alina, you can wait outside." "Shut up," Leonid snapped. "Don't touch my wife." The word wife came out heavy, territorial, dripping with possessiveness. Not love. Not fear of losing her as a person, only fear of losing ownership. Alina felt a shock of clarity shoot through her. Ownership. Yes. That was exactly what he thought she was. Leonid turned to her again, lowering his voice but not the venom in it. "You think dressing like this makes you something? Think anyone actually wants you like that?" His eyes flicked to Marek, burning with panic. "You think he does?" Alina's chest rose and fell, her pulse pounding so hard it felt like a drum in her ears. She should have felt scared. She should have shrunk, apologized, explained. But the words that came out weren't trembling. They were steady. "Leonid, leave." His eyes went wide, as if the ground beneath him cracked open. "What did you say?" "You heard me." Her voice didn't break. "Leave." Marek moved closer, not touching her, not interfering, but standing solidly at her side like a barrier she didn't even have to ask for. Leonid looked between them, rage twisting every muscle in his face. In that moment, he saw it, the spark he thought he had killed. The spark that could burn his entire world down. He took a step back, realization dawning and terrifying him. This wasn't the broken woman he had insulted. This wasn't the invisible shadow he controlled. This was a woman who had been seen, truly seen, by someone else. By herself. Leonid's voice cracked, thin with disbelief. "I can't believe this." But Alina could. And that was the difference. She turned away from him and walked toward the lockers, her posture tall, her steps sure, Marek following a respectful distance behind. Leonid stood there, defeated, breathless, watching the woman he once dimmed blaze with a glow he never allowed her to have. The woman he thought nobody would ever want, was now wanted by the one man he feared most. A man who valued her. A man who respected her. A man she was finally learning she deserved. And that realization shattered him more than any insult ever could.